Hello, everyone, and welcome. It is time for I Didn't Sign Up for This. Carrie, are you with me?
I am. Hi.
Hi. So, what are we talking about tonight?
Well, tonight, Tim, I want to talk about happiness. I think that we've walked around this subject quite a bit, and I want to really zone in on what that means.
Okay. Well, the thing you have to realize about happiness is that happiness is a choice that you make. It's not some ethereal path that you follow with, meditation or spirituality or religion or any of that. All of those things can be a part of it, obviously, but it starts with a choice. Happiness is a choice, and choice is derived out of perspective. Truth be told, if you were to sit down to dinner with Julius Caesar and you were the queen of another country, a country that he wanted to impress. He wanted to make you feel really good about yourself and how important you are to as a strategic alliance or whatever it is, right? So he just wants to blow your socks off. You sit down to dinner with him. The food will be plated up and you will be eating with an instrument, typically a fork. Do you have any idea what that fork would be made of if you were the just drop dead Queen of Egypt? He would serve you up with a fork made out of a particular metal. Do you know what that metal was?
Gold?
No. It's going to surprise you.
Silver.
Nope. Silver also was very easy to come by in the day, especially if you were Caesar.
Lead.
Lead would poison you. Lead would make you batshit crazy. You'd be like, ah!
I have no clue.
Okay, I'm going to give it up. The metal, the most precious metal in the day, the one that he would use to impress you because you were so important to him, was aluminum.
What?
Yeah, aluminum. Absolutely. They would serve you with an aluminum fork, and by eating off of that aluminum, that precious alloy that only through alchemy it could be created. It was strange and mysterious, and they had plenty of it, and it was soft and light. Aluminum. Aluminum is how I impress you with my abundance of aluminum.
Wow.
Okay, so the point of that is, if you were to go to a fine fancy dinner, you go to the inaugural ball or whatever it is, and they serve you up with aluminum utensils. Now, what are you thinking?
This is cheap.
Exactly right.
Bring out the good stuff.
So what's the difference?
Perspective.
Absolutely. The difference is perspective.
Right.
Just a scant couple thousand years ago or less, we thought aluminum was just the finest, most beautiful, silvery, light, precious metal that man had ever put his hands on. It was absolutely amazing. Nobody had it. And it was aluminum, right?
Yeah.
Now, of course, because of your perspective. So tell me something. If you're eating off of that aluminum utensil, if you did it 2,000 years ago, you're the Queen of Egypt. You do it now, you're a Walmart shopper, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The only difference is you decide that the aluminum is precious back in the day. And you then take the input of everybody around you and you decide that it is not particularly precious now. That's the only difference.
So how does that tie into choosing happiness?
Eating off of that aluminum fork and considering it the greatest honor of your life versus considering it an insult to your taste, It's nothing but a choice. It's just a choice you make. It's the story you tell yourself is what makes you happy or unhappy. It goes back to what we've talked about before. Playing the hero in your life versus playing the victim in your life.
That makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. Because how many people stay away from happiness because they do the opposite.
Exactly.
They tell themselves that they don't deserve it, or they tell themselves that they have so much to do before they can be happy. Where if you could just change your perspective, it will change your reality or your perception of reality.
Absolutely. You know, Tom Lehrer wrote a book. Tom Lehrer of the McNeil Lehrer NewsHour. That guy, Jim Lehrer, wrote a book called The Power of Story that I would recommend to absolutely anybody because it deals with this this point very, very well. Simply saying, you tell yourself a story about everything you do. Every time you get up in the morning, every meal you eat, every person that you interact with, everybody that you drive to the freeway or sort of drive on the freeway with on your way to work and on your way home, you are telling yourself a story about that person. You're immediately sizing them up and you're assessing everything from the clothes they're wearing to the vehicle they drive to their behavior in traffic. And you tell yourself a story. Unfortunately, more often than not, we tend to tell ourselves very negative stories. For instance, we tell ourselves, that guy who just cut us off in traffic looked back at us and decided that we were horrible people, unworthy of love and trust, and said, I know, I'll try to clip that person's bumper, right?
Yeah.
That's what we tell ourselves. Now, is that true? I mean, is that true? It might be, but probably not. Probably we didn't notice that guy spilled a hot cup of coffee in his lap. We didn't notice that guy's kid is choking on a sunflower seed in the back seat. And so there are so many things that we don't know, that we can't possibly know. But yet we immediately take what little bit of information we have to create a story, and we tell ourselves a very negative story. And that is a huge mistake in the pursuit of happiness. That is choosing unhappiness.
Yeah, I think that people do that because it's what they're used to. It's safe. So the story that you've told yourself consistently, day in and day out, year over year, and the insecurities that you have are safe. And to move away from those stories and those insecurities, you don't know what you're moving to. It's a leap of faith. And I think that gets in the way of people progressing.
And so how do you break up that pattern?
Well, I think the first thing, you have to want it. You have to want to break the pattern. And I mean, really want it. You can't just, in theory, everybody wants to have no insecurities and have the perfect life. But do you believe that you can have that? And it starts with a desire. And you plant that desire, and then it grows in through work and planning and giving some structure to it and creating. We all have the ability to create. Every day I wake up every morning, and before I get out of bed, the first 5 or 6 minutes, before I go let the dogs out, I lay there and I set an intention for myself for that day. And some mornings are harder than others. It's so easy to get out of bed and start going through the motions of your day and not take the time to do that. But if you set an intention for yourself and you say, today is going to be a great day, or today I'm going to see how much people around me care about me, or I'm going to see the impact that I have on people. So I'm going to go to work and I'm going to see this amazing impact that I have on people. You absolutely will find what you look for. But if you're not taking the time to set the intention, and you're not taking the time to work towards the life that you want, do you really want it, or do you just want an excuse?
And truth be told, if you don't take the time to set the intention, you are not looking for anything. So, I'm a big believer in the notion that everything from a business plan to a life on earth, it has a particular structure or strategy. I used to tell the business clients all the time, you are operating from a business plan. It's either a business plan by design or a business plan by default.
Absolutely.
You just allow yourself to, whatever happens, happens. And that's my de facto, by default, business plan or life plan or day plan or intention or whatever you want to call it. And so if you do not take the time to set that intention and start to look for something, then you're going to find whatever you come across. And because, as we mentioned earlier, humans tend to have this incredible penchant for qualifying and quantifying the things that they just come across as being somehow very, very negative. And because of that, those two problems feed on each other. You're not looking for anything, so you find whatever you find, whatever happens along, and whatever happens along, you ascribe very negative feelings towards. And now you find yourself unhappy and you don't know why.
Well, I see that all the time in the corporate environment. You will fall into whatever's next. You're ambitious, you're working towards a goal, you want to move up the corporate ladder. And so you're falling into applying for this position or looking to network with this group of people, and you're going for it in a way, but is it what you really want? Or is it just something you're falling into? I mean, it's kind of like you're in a relationship and the guy looks at you and says, so I guess we should get married now. I mean, is that really how you want to live your life? It's a...
Exactly.
I mean...
Well, we've been out. This is like the 11th date, so I guess we should get married.
So here's a ring. I'm gonna hate you in 5 years.
It's made of the finest aluminum.
Back in the day, that would have been impressive.
Oh, back in the day, that would have been incredible, yeah. Great big, not quite shiny aluminum ring. Woo, it's so light. Pliable, it's fantastic. You'll love it. No.
But that's how people, look at their careers or their lives. They're like, well, I've been with this company for 14 years. I guess I'll just stay. Well, what if there's something better out there?
Well, generally, we're unwilling to look for something better out there.
Is that how you want to live your life? To just fall into whatever's next because it's safe and warm until you hate yourself and everybody in your life? It's safe and warm right up until you kill everyone.
Exactly. Right until you go into the post office with a 38. This has been the most secure job I've ever had. Die, night supervisor.
Oh, seriously.
But that's what we do, right? That's what we do. We trade what we want for what we think we can have, right? Good friend of mine who I was having a conversation with, this goes back a few years. I've been kicking around the planet for quite a few years now, been working for quite a few years. Great kid. He's actually running his own company now. But back in the day, we were working together and I asked him, what is your car, right? What's your dream car? What does that look like? And I do it more as an example than literally a car, because it's really not about the car. The car doesn't really matter. I just wanted to expose to him the limits in his paradigm and how he was thinking. And so I'm like, what's your dream car, man? What's your dream car? So he tells me, if I could have any car in the world, I laughed just to say this. If I could have any car in the world, I would have an Oldsmobile Alero. I'm like, now, buddy, I've heard a lot.
Well, it's your lucky day. That's doable.
I've heard a lot of Lamborghinis. I've heard a lot of Maseratis and that sort of thing, but yours is the first Oldsmobile Alero I've ever heard. And so we decided to dig a little bit deeper, and I'm like, okay, so let's talk about that. Right on. So tell me, why an Oldsmobile Alero? That just seems really obscure. Yours is the first Oldsmobile Alero that I've ever come across. So tell me, why does that car, of all the cars out there, why does that car come to mind? And he explains it to me, well, my wife, her dad, owns an Oldsmobile dealership. And so I'm sure I could get one at a payment that I could afford. And I'm just like, that's your dream come true, is to somehow be able to afford your payments? Wow.
Well, that says a lot about where he was in his life,
Absolutely.
I mean, he's thinking about these basic necessities. I need to be able to make payments. And obviously, if that's his ultimate dream, that it wasn't something that maybe was feasible or he was struggling with. And that goes back to perception, though. So in that moment, that was his dream. But when he obtains that, his perception is going to change and his dream will change. But if you stay in the same mode, I don't want to say you start to die a little inside, but there's a part of you that's unfulfilled. And you just become a zombie, and you're making those payments and you're going home and you're having that dinner and you're watching TV and you're going to bed and you're getting up the next morning and you're brushing your teeth and taking a shower and going out and sitting there and doing it again and again and again. It reminds me of a question that I read recently in a book, and it was pretty profound for me. And the question was, do you remember who you were before the world told you who you should be? And it even gives me chills just to say that right now, because we don't. A lot of times we forget who we adapt these roles and these beliefs about ourselves and these perceptions of what life should be. And we forget who we are and who we were before the world told us we needed to fit into that mold.
And so how do we get back to that person?
You know, I think it takes some time. You can't just wake up and go, okay, well, my insecurities are gone and I know what I want. And the Oldsmobile Alero isn't enough for me anymore. I want a Lamborghini. It's almost more of a linear thing. You have to go back and look at who you are as opposed to the role or part that you play, and establish how true you're being to yourself. So I think the biggest thing is to stop lying to yourself about what you want or what you don't want or who you are. If you want more and you don't have it and you're not working towards it, the sun rises and sets every day, whether you're working towards your goals or not. The earth is in constant movement. Everything around us is in constant movement. We do not stop. And the people that cling to their paradigms or cling to their insecurities or cling to the beliefs about themselves and the role in their own life, they've stopped and they become stagnant, like a lake that doesn't flow. And we all know what that does. And so you have to break those patterns. The desire is number one, but then the inspection on how honest you are with yourself, because I've been there. I've looked in the mirror and not recognized the person looking back at me and said, this has got to change because I did not sign up for this.
And the sad thing is, most of these paradigms that we hold on to so deeply are not really born out of study or research, logic, or even emotion. They're born out of fear. They're born out of accepting we are who we are told we must be based on someone else's input, someone else's decision. Someone came to you at some point and said, look, aluminum forks are not good enough. We've got to go back to gold and silver, right? Somebody told you who you had to be when just yesterday aluminum was the finest metal you could possibly get a hold of. I take it back to my mantra, a mantra that I have used for, decades now. The answer to your problem lies in what you are pretending you don't know.
Well, that goes back to being honest, right? I mean, it goes back to not lying to yourself.
That's exactly right. And I think people do that in their lives every day. People pretend that they don't know the answer to their problems. And if you could just go in and identify what it is you're pretending that you don't know, you can know it and solve the problem.
But don't you think that there are people out there who aren't ready for the truth? They aren't ready to stop lying to themselves because it's safe. So what about those people?
Well, I think that contented people never move. I used to do this training. With salespeople. And I've done it quite a few times over the years, but the short version is this. I would have these salespeople imagine, I have them sit in the chair, just sit in the chair quietly to yourself, close your eyes, I want you to imagine something. And I would paint this picture for them where they were on a beach in Tahiti. They were on a beach in Tahiti, laying back on a lounge chair on a beautiful, amazing day. And there were people there helping them. There were people there fanning them with palm fronds while somebody else massages their feet. People are peeling grapes and putting them into your mouth so you lay there in the chair in ultimate comfort. Now, will you ever get up out of that chair and move?
Not if I had to.
Okay, but I promise you, you will get up out of that chair and move, and you will make the decision, and it will be sooner rather than later. And I've given you all of the elements of that equation to understand exactly why that's going to happen. You're laying in the chair, feet massage, fanned with palm fronds, being fed grapes, why would you move?
I guess you wouldn't, unless you had to.
You will. Why will you have to? And very soon, I might add.
Eventually, you're going to have to use the bathroom.
Boom! There it is. You're being fed grapes. So you are going to lay there and you are going to ingest these grapes, big, thick, Chilean, red, juicy grapes. They're fantastic, one after another, and you just can't get enough of them, and life is so fantastic. But eventually, you are going to be so wildly uncomfortable by the amount of fluid in your bladder that you will jump up out of the chair and run away from that situation. You might beg everybody to stick around. Please, everyone, stay. Just stay here.
I'll be right back.
Please, I'll be right back, I promise.
Don't move.
You're going to jump up and you're going to run into the clubhouse or the beach house or whatever it is, and you're going to relieve yourself. Not for any other reason other than the fact that you are just uncomfortable. Comfortable people never move. Uncomfortable people always move. I've always felt through the years that it's my job when I see something so glaringly obvious that people need to change about their business or their lifestyle or their relationships, their relationship with deity or whatever it is, whatever we're working on. I feel like it's my responsibility to help them see it. I try to make them uncomfortable. I try to reveal the discomfort. And if I can't, I'm just talking to the wrong guy.
Well, I've dealt with that myself working with clients previously. I mean, I have a couple of clients that come to me when they need a boost, but when things are going okay, I hear nothing from them. But it's not sustainable for them all the time because they haven't gotten there yet. So they're comfortable, but then something happens. Something happens in their relationship or something happens in their life, and they need that boost and they need a planning session. They call me. And we go through a couple of sessions and then things get back on track. So you have to sustain that. And the only way to sustain that is to have that plan above and beyond, because you're going to hit, if you're coming to see me, it's because something has made you uncomfortable and we need to work through it so that you can reach your goal and get to where you need to be. But it has to be a long-term thing. You have to create new habits. You have to create new beliefs about yourself and the environment that you live in.
And do you think that, because the other thing that I was thinking about today, I have noticed that generally problems are getting smaller, but they're being perceived to be much bigger. Do you know what I mean when I say that?
So like first world problems?
It's everybody on this planet has first world problems, I'm telling you. We make that little joke about first world problems, but realistically, virtually everyone has first world problems. I mean, if you think about it, the problems that we encounter today, had we encountered that same life-altering, life-stopping problem even 100 years ago, we wouldn't have batted an eyelash at it. It was like, well, yeah, I guess I did lose a leg, but I've got this here stump, so I'm pretty good. Back to the field, y'all. Right? Let's get, come on, Darnell, back to the fields. Like, I've got a stick here, it's going to help me. And people would just keep moving forward and just keep working, right? It's that line from Rocky 5 or 6 or 7 or 17 or whatever it was. It's not how hard you can hit, it's how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. And I think even a scant 100 years ago, people just kept moving forward. I mean, if you think about it, okay, so you look at it from the perspective of mankind on the planet, right? Now, so like if you're hyper sort of religious fundamentalist, whatever, which nothing wrong with that. I support that entirely. We've been here for about 6,000 years. If you're listening to the scientists, we've been here in our present form for about 200,000 years, which means the last 100 years, 100, what's 100 into 6,000? Yeah, so you're talking about the last 100 years would represent 0.016% of the amount of time that the planet's been around if you think we've been here 6,000 years. I side a little bit more with the scientific perspective, which makes it in our present form about 200,000 years, meaning the last 100 years is 0.0005% of the amount of time we've been here, right? And yet, if I go back in time, 0.0005% of the amount of time that mankind has been schlepping around on the planet, then I find that this tiny little problem that I perceive as a problem today, or many perceive as a problem today, doesn't even bump the needle, right? It doesn't even get anybody's attention. And I think I know why. I think if you go back a couple of 100,000 years, back before we were at the top of the food chain, we had to constantly be looking over our shoulder. So we are out in groups hunting the woolly mammoth, and the saber-toothed tiger is out alone hunting us. And so we constantly have this need to be aware of our surroundings, and to be on edge, amped up, looking around all the time, constantly aware. Now, 30 or 1,000 years ago or so, we decided to stop hunting the woolly mammoth so much and start growing these nifty little seeds that grew outside the hut. These seeds are consumable. We don't have to go out and throw spears. And that is the birth point of the agrarian society that we live in today, which is largely just agrarian. We grow stuff. Even if we grow stuff to feed it to cows and they eat the cows, we still are growing stuff. We're growing in mass amounts. We're not following the herds anymore. But we still have all of those hormones being produced. And so for the lack of a saber-toothed tiger chasing us through the forest, we create problems for ourselves to deal with that are unnecessary.
Or new tigers.
We create our own new tiger. We create our own new tiger at every turn. And we have to, in my opinion, just to burn off the hormones, just to burn off the biochemistry. And so where it used to be, Og got eaten by the saber-toothed tiger, and so there aren't as many in the hunting party anymore, and he's dead and gone now. He got dragged into the forest, right? Now it's whatever Susie said at work that really just pissed me off, right? And we see those things as equivalent. That's the problem. We react the way ancient man might have reacted to a saber-toothed tiger attack. We react in the same way as when Susie pisses me off at work. I can't believe she said that. I can't believe she brought a tuna fish sandwich and sat in the cube right next to me and ate that thing, right? Heaven knows I don't want to come back after I get back from lunch. I'm going to be smelling it out the other end. But that's what we do, right? We take the littlest thing and we make it into a saber-toothed tiger because we feel like we have to. And we don't have to. It's a choice. We could just choose to ignore the tuna fish sandwich, talk about first world problems, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I see that a lot. If we could move away from that and work in an environment where it's collaborative and it's pleasant and we're able to build on each other's ideas and accept the variances that come up when you're working as a group, the efficiency would be phenomenal. It would be outstanding. There would be nobody lacking productivity. But we let our perceptions
and the stories we tell,
absolutely, and our insecurities get in the way of that.
Well, it's about time probably to wrap it up. I'm going to turn back into a pumpkin here shortly.
All right.
All right. So it's been a lot of fun. Thanks so much. As always, dream your life
And live your dreams.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.